Hello and welcome to this detailed exploration of Jacobo Grinberg's work on consciousness, the concept of a universal informational field, and the possibility of reading another person's mind. In today's video, we will dive into the life and legacy of this intriguing Mexican psychologist and neuroscientist, discuss his synthetic theory, examine how it relates to mind reading or telepathy, and address both the supportive and skeptical perspectives surrounding his ideas. If you are interested in bridging the gap between neuroscience, psychology, and spiritual practices, especially with regard to non-local communication, this presentation is for you. Let us begin by painting a comprehensive portrait of Jacobo Grinberg, highlighting his educational background, the circumstances of his mysterious disappearance, and the core principles of his approach to consciousness. From there, we will uncover how these principles attempt to explain phenomena such as telepathy and mind reading. We will also explore practical insights that his theories might offer for developing deeper empathy or energetic connection with others. Finally, we will discuss critiques and the ongoing scientific debate around these topics. By the end of our journey, you should have a clearer understanding of the theoretical framework behind Grinberg's proposed mechanisms for reading another mind, as well as how these ideas fit into the broader field of consciousness studies. Jacobo Grinberg was born in Mexico City in 1946. From an early age, he demonstrated a keen interest in psychology, which led him to study at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, UNAM. After completing his undergraduate degree, he immersed himself in neurophysiology, seeking to unravel the mysteries of the human brain and its relationship to consciousness. Early on, Grinberg showed a willingness to think outside traditional academic frameworks, embracing both conventional scientific approaches and unconventional or mystical sources of knowledge. Throughout his career, Grinberg dedicated significant efforts to exploring states of consciousness that extend beyond normal waking experience. He studied Eastern meditation techniques, delved into the mystical dimensions of indigenous shamanic practices in Mexico, and maintained a persistent interest in parapsychology, particularly the subject of telepathy. This dual focus on rigorous academic research and esoteric knowledge set him apart from many of his contemporaries and garnered attention both in and out of academic circles. Despite his rising profile as a researcher, in 1994, Jacobo Grinberg mysteriously disappeared. Some speculated that he withdrew from public life intentionally, while others suspected foul play. The details of his disappearance remain unsolved, adding an air of enigma to his life and fueling continued fascination with his work. Regardless of the mystery surrounding his fate, the literature he left behind continues to capture imaginations, especially among those interested in bridging scientific inquiry with transcendental or spiritual paradigms. One of Grinberg's most notable contributions is his teoria syntergica, synthetic theory. This theoretical framework attempts to explain how perception emerges from the interplay between the brain's neural activity and a larger, non-local field of information and energy. According to Grinberg, the reality we perceive is the result of a dynamic interaction between our own neurological processes and a universal informational lattice, or field, that underpins everything in existence. At the heart of the synthetic theory lies the assumption of a fundamental field of information that exists independently of our individual minds. Grinberg proposed that every point in space-time is imbued with data that can be accessed under certain conditions. Although reminiscent of concepts from quantum physics, Grinberg's approach blends neuroscience, psychology, and traditional spiritual insights. He argued that the usual state of human consciousness is limited in its ability to access this global field of information. However, under certain circumstances, such as deep meditation, trance states, or particular interpersonal dynamics, an individual can transcend ordinary perceptual boundaries and tap into aspects of this informational continuum. In doing so, a person might gain insights, experience telepathic phenomena, or even share a direct mental connection with another individual. Grinberg's scientific background in neurophysiology guided him to seek potential correlates within the human brain for the experiences he investigated. He believed that the brain operates not only as a generator of consciousness, but also as a receiver or transducer for information that may be non-local. If the brain truly can interface with a universal field, then phenomena such as telepathy or mind reading would theoretically occur when two or more brains synchronize at the right frequencies, effectively allowing direct communication. This perspective stood in contrast with mainstream neuroscience, which largely maintains that consciousness is localized within the physical processes of the brain. While Grinberg did not deny the significance of neural activity, he posited an additional dimension of awareness extending beyond conventional physiology. The synthegric theory thus attempts to merge a rigorous understanding of brain activity with the hypothesis of a field-like connectivity that could explain extraordinary modes of human communication. Because Grinberg studied phenomena often considered subjective or anecdotal, he placed value on personal experiences, particularly those of shamans, meditators, and individuals who reported parapsychological events. By combining first-person accounts with laboratory experiments, he aimed to develop a more holistic framework. For example, in some of his reported research endeavors, participants in meditative or trance states displayed synchronized neurological patterns, hinting, in his view, that non-local communication might be taking place. Although the scientific reproducibility of such experiments is questioned, Grinberg saw these initial findings as encouraging evidence. He believed they warranted further investigation into how consciousness might extend beyond the constraints of the cranial vault. To understand how reading another person's mind fits into Grinberg's work, we must first clarify what is meant by telepathy within his framework. Telepathy, or the direct transfer of information from one mind to another without the mediation of sensory channels, is arguably one of the most intriguing and controversial topics within parapsychology. Within Grinberg's theoretical construct, mind reading would not be a casual or easily reproducible skill. Instead, it would result from two or more consciousnesses aligning to a degree that enables shared access to the universal informational field. In simpler terms, both parties would have to enter a particular state in which the boundaries normally separating their subjective experiences become permeable. Some of the factors that Grinberg indicated as potential facilitators of this process include focused attention or meditation. Quieting the internal mental chatter is considered necessary for perceiving subtler levels of reality or bridging individual mental constructs. Emotional resonance. Mutual trust, empathy, or a deep emotional bond may make it easier for minds to synchronize. Relationships that foster openness and vulnerability seemingly improve the chances of experiencing telepathic phenomena. Intentional alignment. The combined intention of two individuals to connect telepathically might create a conducive mental atmosphere. Though Grinberg references phenomena from shamanic and spiritual traditions that may loosely mirror mind reading, he framed these accounts within the possible existence of an overarching field. Thus, for him, telepathy could be interpreted as an advanced application of the brain's capacity to tune into something beyond its usual scope. Drawing from his experiences with Mexican shamans, Grinberg noted that certain healers and indigenous practitioners regularly reported telepathic-like abilities. Such practitioners often engaged in complex rituals or induced trance states to achieve mental states where they could purportedly access knowledge about others. While mainstream science dismisses many of these stories as anecdotal or placebo-driven, Grinberg's perspective was that these abilities might be legitimate demonstrations of heightened perceptual states. By studying the contexts and methods employed by shamans, Grinberg aimed to discover the underlying principles that could be tested in controlled settings. His fieldwork with indigenous groups and his personal research in the lab formed a bridge between ancient wisdom traditions and modern consciousness studies. Whether one embraces or doubts these anecdotal claims, they showcase how Grinberg connected his universal field hypothesis to centuries-old spiritual observations about human connectivity. While it is important to stress that there is no widely accepted scientific method to reliably read someone else's mind, Grinberg's writings do offer practical suggestions for those curious about non-ordinary forms of communication. If one were to try to apply the synthegric theory in a practical sense, the process might look like this. Develop a meditative or contemplative practice. According to Grinberg, one of the first hurdles to achieving telepathic connection is the constant flux of internal dialogue and mental noise. A stable meditation routine can reduce this noise, heightening one's awareness of subtle shifts in thoughts or perceptions. Such clarity, in theory, provides a foundation on which telepathic connections can be built, foster deep empathy and emotional intelligence. Grinberg's emphasis on emotional resonance suggests that telepathy, and perhaps even a lesser form of intuitive mind reading, demands empathy. Building emotional intelligence, learning to recognize another individual's state of mind through subtle cues and opening one's own emotional landscape can create the level of trust needed for deeper connections. Cultivate shared intent and rapport. If two people actively agree to explore the possibility of telepathy, they may reinforce each other's attempts. Joint meditation sessions, synchronized breathing, or shared visualization exercises might align their mental states. Over time, repeated practice under these conditions could, according to Grinberg's model, lead to noticeable telepathic experiences. Record observations. For the sake of potential scientific validation, Grinberg would likely advise meticulous records of experiences, time, location, participant mental states, and the nature of perceived telepathic communication. While anecdotal, careful documentation might highlight recurring patterns or conditions in which telepathy seems more plausible. Maintain a healthy skepticism. Even for believers in the possibility of mind reading, it is crucial to differentiate genuine telepathic impressions from false positives or misinterpretations of nonverbal cues. Grinberg encouraged open-minded exploration, but also recognized the importance of structured research and cautious interpretation. Ultimately, whether these steps bear fruit is subject to ongoing debate. Traditional scientific consensus remains cautious about endorsing telepathy as a real phenomenon, often citing methodological flaws and lack of reproducibility in existing studies. Still, these practices may hold value for self-awareness, emotional bonding, and exploring the boundaries of perception. No exploration of telepathy or theories like Grinberg's would be complete without addressing the critical voices in the scientific community. Mainstream scholars often highlight several points of contention. Lack of consistent replication. Many attempts to demonstrate telepathy under strictly controlled conditions have failed to produce significant repeatable effects. Researchers demand rigorous protocols, e.g., double-blind experiments, large sample sizes, to confirm telepathy, and to date, positive results have generally failed to pass these stringent tests in the eyes of most scientists. Methodological issues. Critics argue that experiments claiming to show telepathic phenomena are plagued by confirmation bias, the use of small sample sizes, and interpretative leeway that allows ambiguous results to be seen as evidence. They insist that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence which is not yet available. Neuroscientific consensus. The standard view in neuroscience is that cognition and consciousness are products of electrochemical processes within the brain. For telepathy or mind reading to be accepted, there would need to be a paradigm shift acknowledging a non-local consciousness or a field-based mechanism, which most neuroscientists currently find unsubstantiated. Skeptical explanations for alleged telepathy. Psychologists and skeptics often propose alternative explanations, such as subtle behavioral cues, unconscious pattern recognition, or coincidence. A seemingly telepathic event might simply be an example of a person recognizing slight facial expressions or voice inflections, leading them to know what someone is thinking without any supernatural or non-local process involved. Counter-arguments and the defense of Grinberg's theory. Supporters of Jacobo Grinberg's work argue that the conventional scientific model is too restrictive and overlooks the subjective, experiential dimension of consciousness. They suggest that phenomena like telepathy might not conform to typical experimental designs. Non-local phenomena, if real, could be highly sensitive to the mental state or intention of participants, making them elusive under normal lab conditions. Moreover, some defend the possibility that current technology and theoretical models might be insufficient to capture or interpret subtle consciousness processes. They draw parallels to historical shifts in physics, such as the transition from Newtonian to quantum paradigms, to illustrate how scientific consensus can evolve when presented with compelling new evidence. Thus, they maintain that the door should remain open for rigorous creative experimentation that tests non-local consciousness or field-based hypotheses. Jacobo Grinberg is not alone in positing a universal field of information that might explain unusual forms of cognition. Researchers and theorists such as Rupert Sheldrake and Dean Radin have proposed ideas about non-local influences on behavior and mind, including Sheldrake's morphic resonance and Radin's parapsychological investigations at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Though distinct in approach and detail, these theories share a central theme: that human beings may be connected in ways that conventional science does not yet fully understand. Rupert Sheldrake's idea of morphic fields suggests that everything in nature has an inherent memory, and that similar forms resonate across space and time. While this concept is not identical to Grinberg's synthegric theory, both hypothesize an underlying non-local structure to reality. In morphic resonance, telepathy might arise when two individuals share a resonant pattern. Dean Radin has conducted numerous studies on phenomena like precognition, psychokinesis, and telepathy. His meta-analyses often claim that small but statistically significant effects indicate the reality of psi phenomena. Again, skeptics question the methodologies and interpretative biases. However, Radin's work aligns with Grinberg's in suggesting that consciousness may possess aspects that defy strictly materialistic explanations. These parallels underscore that Grinberg's propositions about mind reading or telepathy do not exist in isolation. Instead, they form part of a broader frontier of science and metaphysics where persistent questions about the nature of consciousness remain unresolved. Though still speculative, the notion of mind reading raises significant ethical questions. If telepathy or direct mental communication were truly achievable under certain conditions, we would have to consider issues of privacy, consent, and potential misuse. For instance, personal boundaries. How would we protect our innermost thoughts if another individual could gain direct access to them? Manipulation. In a world where telepathy could be real, unscrupulous individuals might seek to exploit this ability for personal gain or control. Regulatory concerns. Governments and institutions might attempt to regulate or surveil forms of mind-to-mind communication if they believed it posed security risks. While these concerns currently remain in the realm of science fiction for most, they highlight the moral complexities that theoretical discussions about telepathy inevitably bring to the surface. Even if one approaches the subject with a healthy dose of skepticism, there may still be value in exploring Jacobo Grinberg's ideas on mind and consciousness. Expanded curiosity. Investigating concepts like telepathy encourages intellectual and experiential openness. It prompts us to question the limits of what we consider possible and to remain curious about new discoveries at the intersection of science and spirituality. Mindful communication. Regardless of telepathy, focusing on empathy, trust, and authentic human connection can dramatically improve interpersonal relations. The steps outlined in Grinberg's model, such as meditation, emotional sensitivity, and shared intent, are beneficial even in purely conventional communication contexts. Holistic worldview. Grinberg's synthegric theory invites us to see ourselves as part of a larger web of information and energy, fostering a sense of interconnectedness. This viewpoint can encourage a more compassionate and environmentally responsible attitude, recognizing that our actions may reverberate in subtle ways throughout the collective. A bridge between disciplines. Taking inspiration from Grinberg's eclectic approach might inspire a more integrative model of research, where fields like neuroscience, psychology, anthropology, and even quantum physics come together. Collaboration across different disciplines often yields fresh insights into complex issues like consciousness. Jacobo Grinberg's work, particularly around the synthegric theory and the possibility of reading someone else's mind, remains both fascinating and controversial. While mainstream science generally requires robust, reproducible evidence before accepting telepathy as real, Grinberg's ideas challenge us to consider the unexplored frontiers of consciousness. His life, culminating in a disappearance that remains unresolved, contributes to the mystique surrounding his theories, which continue to inspire debate and curiosity. For those who wonder about the potential of telepathy, Grinberg's legacy offers an intriguing framework, even if not definitive. It is a call to investigate the nature of consciousness, with both scientific rigor and open-mindedness. Whether one sees his perspective as a precursor to future discoveries or an imaginative exploration lacking empirical grounding, It undeniably broadens the conversation about what it means to be human, how we connect with each other, and how reality itself might be structured. In conclusion, exploring the possibility of reading another person's mind through the lens of Jacobo Grinberg's synthegric theory invites us to expand our understanding of both the human brain and consciousness. Although the scientific consensus has yet to embrace mind reading or telepathy as valid phenomena, Grinberg's ideas persist in inviting researchers, spiritual seekers, and curious minds to look beyond conventional paradigms. The outcome of this exploration, be it confirmation, refinement, or refutation, will shape the future of consciousness studies and our comprehension of human potential. Until then, the mystery remains a testament to the depth and complexity of the human mind and the enduring quest to understand the true nature of reality.